It is time for another Home Depot run today, but this one I am super excited for, not only because Matt's coming with me this time, so we actually get to spend some time together outside of the marina, even if it's just a run, but we are going to be picking up the plywood that will then let Matt start to make the forms of the steps up for our raised helm. So super excited to see that later this week start to take place. And Tucker is lending us his truck so we can use the big bed because I'm not gonna be able to get any 4x8 sheets of plywood in this thing. How's it feel driving a pickup truck?
I don't like it. Bounce all over the place.
Yep.
Not a control back. Miss my Pacifica.
Notice Matt looking extra sexy. Just got his hair cut on the way out here.
Making a day of this.
Yes, we are actually. And now to figure out what wood we need. Foggy day on the bridge.
Oh my god.
This is crazy. Wow.
Yeah, that's the foggiest I've ever seen it.
Yeah. Can't see the other bridge barely. Can't see the water. But we've got all of our wood in the back of the truck, and so, well, maybe not today because we have plans tonight, but pretty soon we'll start building the mock-up for the steps and everything for the raised helm. We're back. Time to get her unloaded. All right, get Anthony to do it. He probably needs some hard work. Yard boy number 2. Would you like a hand, my dear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This week we are very excited to actually start the work instead of just like theoretical planning on our helm station here. And yesterday we went to the Home Depot to grab supplies so that we could start to build forms, but let's talk a little bit about the history of this. A year and a half ago, Matt and I went to Vietnam to watch the launch of Hull 4, the very first production version of the Max Cruise catamaran. It did have the dual aft helms, so that setup we already knew wasn't going to apply to us. We went back 2 months later when they were launching Hull 6, their first electric hybrid too, which was really exciting. And that was their first raised helm. So we looked at how they had their setup done and what they figured out, because all of the cables and steering and just mechanics that you have that usually go with like a helm and winches, they kind of dedicated this into a locker, which is helpful, but unfortunately it blocked the window, so you no longer had the light or the view out of there. So Matt and I thought, I don't think this is necessarily the way that we want to go, even if we don't have full access to this window here. You know, if we have to just section off a portion of it, that way we still can keep some of it for natural light coming through, even if you're kind of looking at a pedestal. So we started thinking about it a little bit more, and then at last year's Annapolis Boat Show, we went aboard the HH catamaran, which had a totally different setup that we thought maybe this could work for us, and I'll let Matt tell you about that in more depth.
You can see by this cutout in the roof and where this helm is positioned right now, this is kind of how the original plan was. What it would have done, we would have had this seat would have been cut down. So that would be the first step then. You'd have, I think that's like 16-inch rise on it. You'd step here, then you have a little step out here and step into this position. Really, it works. It would have worked well for us, I believe. And the HH was a little bit different. They have just a cutout in the back for a foot. Slide that in there and step up. It's not the best setup for ergonomics for being able to climb up and down in there to the helm itself. And especially when you're in an emergency situation, when you need to do that, or if we have someone with mobility issues aboard the boat, they would have to go then down and around to get into the cockpit. But what it was going to do is it would allow us to have this full cockpit seat. We'd have an insert that goes in here, cushion insert. It would have given us this entire area, which is really, really helpful. But that compromise, that mobility compromise, and we are 41, so our knees are starting to go, of course, And the thoughts are 10 years from now, when we still are using this boat cruising around the world, are we going to want to have to step up that high to get to the helm area? And realistically, after thinking about it, no, that's not the way we want to do it.
Especially after doing multiple boat shows and doing steps, and we're like, this is kind of nice.
Yeah. So like an actual set of steps really makes more sense. As Jess mentioned, what they've done now on the production versions is they moved this whole helm all the way forward here to this bulkhead, and you're sacrificing this much of the seat for a set of steps and cabinetry that runs the full height. Well, we didn't necessarily want that full height cabinet because we really want to keep this window opening here. If you remember, our settee faces in here, faces this corner. So when we're sitting here, we've got this beautiful view over here. Well, we also are looking straight into this corner. So we wanted to make sure that we have the light coming through, that I can sit here and I can look up at the helm. So if Jess is at the helm, I can make sure everything's going right. We can communicate easily. So we want to make sure we keep this window side up. So what our plan is now, and we're going to test this out, we're going to cut this area up and test it out with just sheets of plywood just to make sure everything works well. We're going to move this helm all the way up to the bulkhead. We're going to follow the contours of this window opening, and we're just going to make a little cabinet here, so up to window height basically for the cabinet, or up to deck height for the cabinet, and then we'll have a set of steps here. So the current Max Cruise in production is for an American Floridian that has requested pretty much the same setup as what we're doing. So luckily they were a couple of steps ahead, and they have already started that, and it seems to work really well. What they've done is they made the steps a little bit wider, so in the cabinet a little bit wider than what I think we're going to do, and they went all the way out to this position for the steps. What that does, that leaves then just this for a seating area. We want to, again, maximize the seating.
The lounge.
The lounge, yes. We want to be able to do that. We want 2 people to be able to sit here comfortably. And what we do is we just envision sitting here, resting up against the set of steps, having a nice cushion, being able to stare back, look around, so a good visibility, great access to the helm then. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it first right here, move this seat, cut this whole section out, and this will be the start. If that doesn't work out, of course, we can always go back and cut it a little bit deeper if we need to, but we're going to start right here today. First cut point, I'm going to go straight down here, and then I'll cut out.
And this is also why this berth hasn't been finished out anymore, because we're just tearing into it.
Yes, we're obviously cutting into this, but it was also trying to plan out exactly where the lines are going to run for the steering and for the throttle cable. With the hybrid system, the throttle setup is fairly deep. It is a long throw on it. The push-pull lines end up going arcing down, so we need to account for that. We can't do just a short turn, and they cannot go a sharp 90 degree. They need a large bend radius. So it's been trying to plan out how we're going to impact the berth as little as possible, because of course this is our berth here, so we want to make sure it's good. But we also need to run those cables, since the diesel engine is over on the port side. We need to be able to run those cables down through this beam all the way over and make sure they transition well into that engine bay, that we're not, again, causing that tight radius turn, which then they don't work really well. And it's something that's going to be accessible as well to be able to fix if we ever need to replace those things. This is why we've taken so long to do this, because I don't want to actually cut this area.
There's no going back.
And we couldn't really template it properly because of the rise that we're going to have, which is about this high for each one of the steps, and try that out just to make sure it works without this actually getting out of the way. So I do need to cut it no matter what. Point of no return. You sure it's what you want, Jess?
Nah.
People are going to ask, ask, why are you using an oscillating tool for cutting this and not a grinder? It's because I can do this in a t-shirt then. If you notice when I cut it, because of that sawing motion, basically 99% of the dust just falls straight down, and it's not kicking up all over the place. So if you ever see me or you wonder why I use this all the time instead of cutting with a circular saw or anything like that, it's because I don't want to put on Tyveks. And there we go.
Cockpit seat gone. There's our bed.
Yeah. Whew. All right, so step one.
Step 1, demolition complete.
Yep. All right, now I can go in and clean up and remove this little flange piece. That piece that attaches has been bonded to there. Yeah, get that cleaned up and then start laying this out. Already have done the math for it as to the rise and tread depth. So we've got that kind of played out as to how that's going to be. What we're also going to do is we're going to extend this area, which will be the foot area, the standing area. We're going to extend that out just a little bit, about 5 inches. And that's just going to give us more space then. So when we're working on the winch that will be right up here, you're not leaning over a void. It's actually right underfoot. You can brace yourself and use the winch if needed. This will be the electric one, but it is still nice to be able to manually do it.
Yeah, or even, you know, like you were using the wheel on hull 6, and it's nice to kind of like put your foot out and have support versus like having it on an edge and you're teetering over.
Yep, so we figure that's going to be a big part of this value of moving this whole helm forward. Is it also pushes the weight forward, which is good, so we don't have as much in the stern, but it's going to give us that big flatter area to be able to work on. With the opening cut out, now I need to find my correct angle for the back. And so what I'm going to do is just make a quick little template. So basically level off the floor where this little piece lies. So we'll attach template material here, upright. And then once I have that, now I can put that on the piece of plywood. So I know that's where the back's going to fall for the stair frame.
Time to take this down and trace.
Yep. Just cutting it oversized at this point, and then once it's up here, I can make sure I get it nice and level, square, and cut the final piece. Complication, and one of the things that we do have to account for is the door, remember, slides in this pocket here, so we can't put this all the way up against the bulkhead, at least to this point. The door will go all the way to here, so we do have to make that pocket in this. So I'll have one flat panel on this side, another flat panel here, which is going to make up the cabinetry in this area, and then we'll make the steps over here.
Now we're getting our laser lined up before we copy that piece to go on the far end to know where to cut it off and have it be level with the beam that goes to that support. Now that we have the first piece properly cut to size, Matt is templating it to do the other side of it, so that way we don't have to do laser aligning and all of that more than once.
If this wasn't here right now, this overhead, I think these stairs are wide enough. I got them in millimeters. Let me measure it out for you guys. What we've done is the stairs are 21 inches wide. We have an 11-inch rise and 8.5-inch depth, which is about the max that we can do for an easy step. Now, we did look at previously at the Helm Peugeots, and the one that we were on, 42 foot, something like that, that had a 14-inch rise, so pretty good step, but the math didn't quite work out for what we needed to finish off at this height. With the original plan, we would have only had a 7.5-inch depth for the step, which is a little too small. 8.5 is about the minimum for Jess and I. It's what we actually have going down into the holes, same thing. So we've gone with that. What that's done is that's reduced this top step, so that addition that we're adding here for the helm position, it's reduced that down to about 5.5 inches that we're adding there, which stinks. I would like to add a little bit more, but it's a comfortable position then where the winch placement's going to be and that kind of stuff. And again, the real reason that we wanted to do this is to figure out if that width was going to be fine for us for the steps, the height was going to be comfortable for us, and so far I have to hunch over when I'm doing it, but it seems perfectly fine. And then this little cabinet that's going to be next to me here is just over a foot wide, and I don't know what's going to be in here yet. Haven't figured that out. We're going to have the runs for the steering cables are going to be through here and stuff like that, but it may just be a hanging locker that we can use for like foul weather here, and this would be a good place to do that because I could put a drain right in the bottom that just dumps it right overboard. So that may be what this ends up as storage there. I actually like that idea, so we'll see if we can make that work.
Make sure to join us for next week's episode, where we continue working on the helm, but focus on cutting back the cabin top and getting the pedestal we received from Max Cruise to fit our new setup of nestling against bulkhead 6 and the window into our salon.